Hey everyone, it's Sevi. Star Rail's version 1.3 is bringing us some very important persons with former High Elder Imbibitor Lunae and Master Diviner Xuan, and tagging along is also the adorable little Lynx Landau. These characters certainly accumulated some hype with their impact on our Shenzhou experience, so in this video, I'm going to analyze what we already officially know about their kits to help you decide if they're getting your Stellar Jades. Let's get into it. First up is Dan Heng's Glow Up, continuing the destructive release trend as the imaginary DPS Imbibitor Lunae, who introduces a unique attacking mechanic with seemingly strong damage potential. Imbibitor can consume 1 to 3 skill points to enhance his basic attack at different levels, dealing increasing AoE damage and hits, while his talent also amplifies the damage he deals in a turn based on the hits per action. That's one damage buff stacked on another, and I can't wait to see just how hard he hits with all those in the mix. Those fingers definitely mean business. Imbibitor's ultimate gives free skill point replacements for himself to offset his SP consumption on top of dealing damage, though for the most part he seems to be heavily reliant on your teammate's SP generation. Because of this mechanic, Imbibitor Lunae seems to want a higher than average level of strategic gameplay, mainly through efficient skill point management, which has huge implications on his team comps and rotations. For one, he really wants teammates that are effective skill point generators to feed him and possibly offset another teammate's skill point usage. If not, Imbibitor will constantly struggle with effectively utilizing his enhanced basics. There's also the concern of having enough speed for his teammates, as they ought to be fast enough to quickly cycle through their basic attacks and generate those valuable skill points for Imbibitor's setup. Adapting Imbibitor's rotations between aggressive or alternating skill point stacking will also be something to keep in mind. Thankfully, we have complementary support units that have naturally SP positive playstyles like Pella, Tingyun, Silverwolf, and Luocha to name a few. Other supports that are generally SP positive can also adapt to more SP neutral or positive rotations to accommodate Imbibitor's SP consumption. It's going to be really interesting to see how we can work around Imbibitor's playstyle and what the damage payoff will be. We're also going back to an attack scaling destruction unit after Blade's unique HP preference, so for relics he seems to have two equally competitive 4-piece sets. One is the Wastelander, which gives imaginary damage and crit bonuses. However, its high potential is also conditional, since you have to attack debuffed enemies for the crit rate bonus and imprisoned enemies for the crit damage bonus, which right now can only be inflicted by an imaginary break or welt. Farming the cavern might also be inefficient for you if you have no use for the fire set. So another highly competitive option is the 4-piece Musketeer set, which is more convenient. It gives everything Dan Heng benefits from: attack, speed, and basic attack damage bonus, all of which are unconditional bonuses for better consistency. It's personally the set I'll start him with. Still, 2-piece combos of Wastelander, attack, or speed should be a very good and flexible build. And for the planar set, the Rudolent Arena followed by Space Sealing Station are his top contenders so far. Both are in simulated universe worlds with great support sets, so farming either of them will thankfully be efficient. It's also good to know that we already have a strong free light cone option, the Fall of an Aeon from Herta's store. At max superimpositions, it performs quite well in attack scaling destruction units, and it should be the same for Imbibitor. There are other gacha options available with their own conditional benefits, but the Aeon is already free and it'll likely be one of his top light cones, so that's one less thing to worry about. For more build details like his stats and light cone options, I'll discuss more in my full guide when he releases. My current general thoughts on Imbibitor is that he'll have a very good pull value if you're in want of a strong DPS, more so that he's the first dedicated imaginary DPS. His playstyle requires more awareness of SP management and team considerations, so depending on your experience, it might come with a higher learning curve than usual. But if Blade is any indicator for the damage potential of destruction units moving forward, and for those who have skipped him for the dragon, Imbibitor should be well worth it. On the other hand, you might have a good selection of DPSs that you're in the process of building. If that's your situation, maybe Imbibitor won't have super high pull value, and it's the same story again with Blade, where there's a close alternative looming over the next update. This time it's Jingliu, another 5-star destruction unit, but ice. At this point, it's a timeless husbando versus waifu preference, but you probably can't go wrong with either. However, if you prefer new comfort units, especially if you feel like your abundance and preservation selections are either lacking or unbuilt, then the next banner has a 2-in-1 survival support deal with Xuan and Lynx, who are bringing some interesting new mechanics as well. Let's start off this survival pair with Master Diviner Xuan, who's a new 5-star preservation quantum unit with a couple of twists. For one, she's an HP-focused preservation, a clear deviation from the defense focus of preservation units so far. The way she also protects your teammates is different too. Instead of shielding teammates or redirecting enemy aggro, she instead reduces the damage everyone takes, and if allies get hit, a portion of that damage will be redirected to Xuan instead. Since Xuan is basically going to be the team's damage sponge, she's going to want a lot of HP to tank all that damage. Wait a second. Anyway, instead of trying to overlap with Gepard, Xuan seems to offer a completely new route for preservation that has its own advantages and considerations. By still having her allies take reduced damage, this can allow effects that require taking damage to be triggered. One best example is Blade, who was previously anti-synergistic with preservation supports due to their shield preventing damage to him. Now, Xuan can more naturally synergize with him, and for similar units in the future too. Depending on her multipliers, she might be able to do a decent amount of damage despite being a defensive support, but regardless, everyone's damage will get boosted with her crit rate buff. But consider that Xuan does not negate the damage completely, and her allies are still taking all that damage, albeit at a reduced amount. It's likely you'll still want a way to heal them, much like how Dia worked, and it's a valid concern as to how well Xuan can keep not just herself alive, but also your entire team in a tough battle. Xuan's talent lets her heal herself every so often, so she has a means of self-sustain. However, there's no mention of her providing minor healing to allies, at least in this special program preview. And you might think that it's too much to expect a preservation unit to heal as well, but it's not completely out of the question. March technically can offer minor heals through an Eidolon, and some preservation light cones actually provide conditional healing effects. If that's something Xuan can have, then she'll definitely be a more complete package. Either way, we'll have to see just how reliable she can be as a solo survival support, and I'm awaiting her official descriptions for her Ascension traces to see what other utilities she has, but I have great expectations that her kit will set a high standard for limited preservation characters. Building her might also have different expectations from other preservation units due to her HP scaling kit. I guess we shouldn't be surprised seeing how Luocha, an abundance character, scales on attack instead. The 2-piece Longeva set is going to be a staple recommendation for HP, but depending on how good her damage numbers will be, the 4-piece set might be viable too if you want more crit rate for a hybrid damage build. Alternatively, the 2-piece Guard of Wuthering Snow's damage reduction complements her tank role, and the 4-piece set could at least be a safety net if she can't heal fast enough with her own talent, or just combining the 2-piece Longevas, 2-piece Guard, or 2-piece Speed sets for more stat flexibility should also be a safe build route. Those seem to be her standard support build, unless you're planning something more offensive, like putting the 4-piece Quantum set on her for more damage, or the 4-piece Thief set to take advantage of Quantum Break's damage and delay. And for her planar set, I'm eyeing the Fleet of the Ageless for its HP bonus and team-wide attack buff, or the Broken Keel for its effect resistance and team-wide crit damage buff. And those two are both solid support sets with efficient worlds to farm damage ornaments too. Similarly, her optimal light cone options will be different as she has less synergy with defense-focused light cones. Thankfully, there are light cones already that have HP-related mechanics or damage reduction effects which might synergize better with her kit. Of course, her signature light cone will be specialized for her kit, but how much of an upgrade it is compared to other gacha options is something we'll have to wait and see. Pulling on Xuan's banner is likely going to hand you a second survival support since we're getting a new 4-star abundance unit on her banner as well. That's Lynx, our third and youngest member of the Landau siblings. As far as abundance characters go, she does what you'd expect her to do: single target and team-wide healing plus a healing over time effect. However, she does have additional interesting utilities. For starters, her skill increases the max HP of a unit, sort of like a light version of Bailu's Ascension ability. Aside from boosting a unit's survivability, this has double the benefits on characters whose damage is HP scaling, like Blade. More interestingly, she can increase the aggro of teammates, but this will only apply to preservation and destruction units. I guess it makes sense, since these are units that generally want to be attacked and are more capable of taking damage, like Clara or Blade. That's quite the specific synergy, which makes her an optimal survival unit in destruction-focused teams. Another welcome utility is her debuff cleanse, but unlike Natasha and Luocha's single-target skill cleanse, Lynx's ultimate cleanse removes one debuff from each of your teammates. The difference is it's now a team-wide effect, but is also constrained by by energy costs rather than a skill point use. Lynx has a lot of overlapping utilities with Natasha, but also has certain advantages like the aggro manipulation and team-wide cleansing, which gives her a different level of synergy. I also expect her to have the same build considerations as Natasha or Bailu, so that'll be pretty straightforward too. And as another quantum survival unit, she could help complete your mono quantum team rather than Xuan, and if you're pulling on their banner, then you'll likely get them both anyway. As we wrap up, here's a quick summary of what to consider for each of the upcoming 5 stars in version 1.3. Heng Imbibitor Lunae should be a very strong DPS that might compete with our previous limited 5 stars, and we're finally getting a dedicated imaginary DPS. But be warned that he might require more SP management and rotation awareness to unlock his full potential, and that his teammate considerations should also fit well in this SP-hungry playstyle. All in all, he seems to have high pull value if your roster needs a limited 5-star DPS, and of course, he's a wet dream for mono imaginary team wanders. On the other hand, Xuan offers a new approach towards preservation, bringing a unique synergy with units that actually want to take damage. The biggest question is how well she can sustain your entire team against hard-hitting enemies, and depending on that, she may or may not need a healer teammate anymore. With that, she's got high pull value if you want a long-term survival unit and a significant upgrade over your free-to-play options. Since she's sharing a banner with Lynx, this will definitely expand your survival roster. And both are quantum units for widening your elemental coverage and enabling those mono quantum teams. Imbibitor Lunae and Xuan have very different team roles, so how much your account can benefit from one over the other should be quite clear-cut. We'll just have to wait for their final release if there are any surprises in their kits that could change our evaluation of them. With that said, let me know in the comments if you got your sights set on one of them, or if you're skipping and saving for version 1.4. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!